I want you to all stop for just one moment and imagine what a perfect album in your own eyes looks like. Does it involve a lot of technically proficient instrumentation or just overall sound like OK Computer by Radiohead? Or maybe something with a super well thought out concept like Kendrick Lamar's To Pimp a Butterfly? Now, what if I told you that a truly perfect album, in my own opinion, is something that has to merge both of these, not necessarily involving an overarching concept, but something with top tier musicality and a ton of subject matter. And that is where we meet Queens of the Stone Age. In specific, we're going to be talking about songs for the deaf. To say it in the shortest and most upfront way possible, this is some of the most badass music I have ever experienced. As I was saying before, a perfect album in my eyes masters its subject matter and its musicality, two very important driving factors that go into the enjoyment of an album for me personally. Most near perfect albums only perfect one of those two things instead of both of them, which is what makes this one here so much different from the rest. Songs for the Deaf not only does both very well, but it absolutely perfects both. Going from the album's concept of a fictional radio station, Clone Radio, premiering this band that sounds more like everybody else than anyone else, and the lack of personality and uniqueness eventually turning this band into so much nothing that they release a song about nothing with nothing. No instruments, no singing, no lyrics, nothing. It's just utter silence, and this makes it on the radio. This entire back and forth serves as a comedic concept spanning the entire album for a listener to grab onto something as they're listening in a full album experience, as well as a deeper thought poking fun at the modern world of rock and roll music, especially back in the early 2000s, with the introduction of the internet creating all these bands sounding more alike than anyone else, instead of doing their own thing and making their own unique music. A lot of these bands at the time that Josh Homme and Queens of the Stone Age are poking fun at more so copied their influences from decades past before the days of the internet rather than creating new music. There's a reason a lot of these new age 2000 onward rock bands have the same old power chords, same old chord progressions, and even whenever they do a solo that sounds good on paper, it sounds so formulaic and like everything else you've ever heard. And if you go into these bands' other music, it all sounds the same. Each solo, as at first it sounds decent, but you'll realize really quick that's the same old scale for each one of these solos, and that's what the band is trying to poke fun at here. The fall of good rock and roll. This is what singer-guitarist Josh Homme and Queens of the Stone Age ask with this album. What happens to rock? They present the flawed world of rock music at the time and instantly prove that they're nothing like them and they're something special that should be paid attention to by proving to be the farthest possible thing from that. And this is the perfect segue into the second of the means that makes a perfect album in my eyes, and that is the musical quality. Whether it's the versatility of Josh Homme on the guitar or on vocals, all the way to the superstar Dave Grohl on drums with his punchy, complex drum fills all throughout, especially on a song like Song for the Dead with some of my favorite drum lines of all time. Going back to the genius of Josh Homme, the riffage on the entire album is absolutely incredible. Two of my all-time favorite riffs are on this album because of their grimy, disgusting, just all-around badass, as I described before, nature. No One Knows, and again, Song for the Dead, an absolute perfect song in my eyes, one of my favorite songs of all time. This whole project just feels so complete in absolutely every single possible way. As frontman Josh Homme described in late interviews, The band was on a shit ton of drugs at the time in the creative process and the recording process of this album. He described the use of every intoxication under the sun being taken, which created the most unique musical ideas the band could have ever conceived, even if it wasn't immediately on their head without intoxications. The fact that it was somewhere deep down boiled inside each member of the band shows the magic of each one of these musicians. Each song and each little instrument and each singular note on this album paints a picture for this story they're trying to tell, and the picture in question is the Mona Lisa. Queens of the Stone Age's Songs for the Deaf is a perfect, flawless, delicious 10 out of 10. There's nothing else I could fairly give this album. It's an absolute mastercraft in its genre and music at the time. It represents a very much true and flawed state of music at the time, and it's had a long-lasting personal connection to me and my roots in learning guitar. I have no complaints at all about this album. There's nothing I would change. Thank you all for watching, and I will see you next time.